Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sure. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Subcommittee meeting. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings. And as we have quorum present for today, I would like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, the following change was made to the agenda. Item number 5, communication items, correspondence from Mayor Andrea Horvath to the Minister Todd Smith respecting critical capacity constraints of the Dundas Transformer Station with the recommendation that it be received.
All right, thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Al and Melvin? Any discussion? All in favor? Hi, Kathy. Any opposed? It's carried. Just confirming that we have quorum, right? Yeah, okay. All right, declarations of interest. Are there any around the table? I'm not seeing any, so we'll carry on. Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, April 25th already. Oh, we've got a bunch online here too. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Guess I need to look to my left once in a while. All right, can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes from April? Daniel, seconder. Councillor Kassar. Any discussion on the minutes?
And we're on next week. Yeah. We're going to left.
Not seeing any discussion. Can I get a vote in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, communications. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put the communication item on the floor? 5.1, correspondence from Mayor Andrea Horvath to Minister Todd Smith respecting critical capacity constraints of the Dundas Transformer Station. Gavin Smuck, is there a seconder? Melvin, Switzer, any discussion? Is there a copy of that in here? All right, so I put it on the floor. Do I need a motion to receive as well? Or is that, yeah. Get a motion to receive that correspondence item? No? Okay. We just need a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next page. All right, staff presentations, item 8.1, City of Hamilton draft framework for processing and evaluating urban boundary expansions applications. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put item 8.1 on the floor? Councillor Taddison, seconder, Gavin Smuck, and I'll turn it over to Charlie Tommen. Tommen? Take it away.
Great. Just going to share my screen quickly. That's not what we want. Is it on multiple screens? Let's see. I don't know. All right. Sorry about that, the technical difficulties. Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. My name's Scott Turnbull. I'm a planner in the Sustainable Community section in the Planning Division. I'm also joined by Charlie Tolman, Program Lead for Municipal Comprehensive Review and Policy Planning, also in the Sustainable Communities section. Staff are here today to discuss the City of Hamilton's draft framework for processing and evaluating urban boundary expansion applications. We've prepared some discussion questions at the end of the presentation for the committee's consideration, but if there's anything that needs clarification, please feel free to let us know as we go, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So to start, we wanted to provide some additional context regarding the draft framework we are presenting today. The creation of this draft framework is in response to recent planning legislation and policy changes made by the province. In April 2023, the province released the first draft of the new provincial planning statement, which would replace two important provincial land use planning documents, the 2020 provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The city provided detailed comments on the drafts of the new provincial planning statement, raising concerns, among other things, with the removal of a municipal comprehensive review requirement prior to considering urban boundary expansions over 40 hectares in size. This change would allow landowners to submit urban boundary expansion applications at any time for any size and in any location, provided the lands were not within the Greenbelt Plan area. Sorry, yep. This change would allow landowners to submit urban boundary expansion applications at any time for any size and in any location, provided they are not within the Greenbelt Plan area. In addition to the new provincial planning statement, this past June, the province passed Bill 185, the Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, which among other things amended the Planning Act, allowing proponents of urban boundary expansion applications to appeal council's refusal or non-decision of their application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. These changes were finalized and came into effect this past October, meaning that applicants may now submit an official plan amendment application for urban boundary expansion at any time and with no limit on the size of the expansion, provided it is outside of the Greenbelt Plan area. If council refuses the application or does not provide a decision within the legislated 120-day timeframe, the applicant can then appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So the lands shown on the screen in beige and purple identifies approximately 4,320 hectares of land outside of Hamilton's urban boundary and outside of the Greenbelt Plan area where the city could receive urban boundary expansion applications. The beige lands represent potential residential or community expansion areas, while the purple areas are impacted by noise from the airport and are identified as potential employment areas. So in response to these provincial changes, the city has prepared a draft framework for processing and evaluating urban boundary expansion applications. It's important to note that the creation of the draft framework is not a move away from the city's firm urban boundary growth strategy, which has been approved and reaffirmed by City Council. Rather, recognizing that these applications can now be submitted and appealed, the purpose of the framework is to ensure that any proposed urban boundary expansions are carefully assessed against the city's priorities, and this is done by establishing clear submission requirements, including technical plans and studies, establishing a set of key considerations for the city's review process, including addressing issues such as impacts on farmland, infrastructure capacity, and costs. And finally, outlining a clear, transparent process for submission, review, and public and Indigenous community engagement. This draft framework was presented to Planning Committee and approved by City Council on August 16th. City Council provided direction for staff to use the draft framework for any urban boundary expansion application that is received before the framework is finalized, to create a new team within the Planning and Economic Development Department to lead the review of urban boundary expansion applications, and to establish new application fees for urban boundary expansion applications, to add funding to the city's Ontario Land Tribunal capital budget in anticipation of additional appeals. And finally, direction was provided for additional work to be completed respecting the long-term financial impacts of urban boundary expansion applications. On August 16th, Council also directed planning staff to consult on the draft framework, including engagement with Indigenous and First Nations peoples. Council approved staff's consultation and engagement plan on October 23rd, 2024. The consultation and engagement plan has two main goals. The first is to inform the community about the recent provincial changes and how this impacts Hamilton. This is critically important because there have been so many changes made at the provincial level regarding Hamilton's urban boundary in recent years. The public needs to be clearly informed on why the city needs to develop the draft framework when it has adopted a firm urban boundary growth strategy in the past. The second is to consult with the community on aspects of the draft framework that the city can control. Specifically, how and when community wants to be notified when an application has been made and determined complete, how and when community wants to provide their input on urban boundary expansion applications, and what type of submission requirements should be required as part of an urban boundary expansion application. The city has 4 open houses planned around the city starting next week, where members of the public can learn more about the provincial changes, the city's draft framework, and ask questions to staff. In addition to the Rural and Agricultural Affairs Committee, we have consulted with other committees of council, external review agencies such as school boards and conservation authorities, as well as local community groups and non-governmental organizations that may have interest in urban boundary expansion. So diving into the framework itself, the framework is divided into 3 parts: submission requirements, key considerations, and the process for submission, review, and public engagement. Part A sets out the submission requirements for any urban boundary expansion application received by the City of Hamilton. As urban boundary expansion applications are unique from typical development applications and are not contemplated in the city's official plans, this section provides guidance on the required studies and plans that need to be submitted, as well as specific guidance on the scope and terms of references for those submission requirements. This guidance was developed with input from city departments, as well as Dillon Consulting, who were retained to provide technical advice. Of particular note for this committee, this section of the framework identifies an agricultural impact assessment as a minimum submission requirement for any urban boundary expansion application. The purpose of requiring an agricultural impact assessment will be to evaluate the potential impacts of urban boundary expansion and non-agricultural development on existing agricultural operations, the agricultural system, and to provide any recommended mitigation measures. The city has an existing terms of reference for agricultural impact assessments, which was circulated to committee members, but to provide a quick summary, the report needs to be prepared by a qualified professional and needs to be in accordance with the standards outlined in the OMAFRA Draft Agricultural Impact Assessment Guidance Document. This OMAFRA document provides guidance on the preparation of agricultural impact assessments, including methodology, how to assess impacts, potential mitigation measures, and calculating net impact to the agricultural system. It should be noted that in 2021, as part of the city's growth-related integrated development strategy, often referred to as grids. An agricultural impact assessment was prepared for potential residential expansion area lands that were shown previously in the presentation to assess the impacts of different growth scenarios for the city. However, new agricultural impact assessments will need to be prepared and submitted for each new urban boundary expansion application. Part B of the draft framework establishes considerations that the city will use to assess urban boundary expansion applications. These considerations build upon work that was completed by the city as part of their most recent municipal comprehensive review, but has now been further refined based on additional input from city departments, as well as changes to reflect the new provincial planning statement. The 11 themes and general descriptions are listed on this slide and includes considerations related to the agricultural system. On this slide, we have broken down all the agricultural system related considerations, which staff have suggested be used to assess urban boundary expansion applications. For example, some of the considerations include assessing whether the urban boundary expansion area avoids prime agricultural areas, does it comply with the minimum distance separation formula, and where avoidance isn't possible, does the expansion area minimize and mitigate impact to the agricultural system. These considerations will need to be addressed by applicants as part of their application to the city through the submission of an agricultural impact assessment and a planning justification report. Finally, Part C of the framework outlines the process in which any urban boundary expansion application would be received, processed, considered, and decided on within the 120-day timeframe required by the province. This section includes enhanced public and Indigenous community consultation requirements, including calling on applicants to undertake pre-application engagement with First Nations and Indigenous communities, as well as community residents, requiring additional public notice signs surrounding the expansion area and a larger notice mailout, requiring that the city hold at least one open house on the application prior to the statutory public meeting, and making all application materials publicly available on the city's website. So staff are currently in the process of consultation on the draft framework until the end of the year. We would welcome and greatly appreciate any comments the committee may have, which can be provided by December 9th. All the feedback we receive through our engagement will be included in a summary engagement report and posted online. The feedback will be used by staff in the finalization of the framework and incorporating its direction into official plan policies. So that concludes our presentation. We do have a few discussion questions for committee members as shown on the slide. However, recognizing that there was a lot of information in that presentation to absorb, we wanted to just open the floor to any questions or comments that committee members may have at this time.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Any questions in the room or online? There we go. Now I can see everyone online. If you had any questions, I'm sure there's a raise your hand function, or you can try and chime in, but anybody in the room? Ed? Yeah.
This is Susan. Yeah. Good. Yeah, thanks. There's a delineation there on greenbelt and non-greenbelt lands.
That's correct. It does not, urban boundary expansion applications are not permitted within the Greenbelt plan area.
All right.
just wanted to make note that there is a 2020 version of the Ag Impact Assessment Guidance document now. So the 2018 version might be out of date, and I'm sure the 2020 version will soon be out of date as well, because OMAFA is working on that to update their guidance document to fall in line with the new PPS.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
On that note, you mentioned a 2021 AIA that was prepared for the Grids 2 proposal. Is that publicly circulated, the AIA itself?
Through the chair, or to the chair. So there was a agricultural impact review that was included. It was appended to staff's report when a staff took the report forward on various growth options that council could adopt. We can share a copy with this committee afterwards if they like.
That'd be great. Thanks. I think generally there's, if I could comment, that there is a number of good base considerations in this document on where to go in the future. Certainly the piece around prime agriculture land and ensuring that we're looking at all the other options available on the table before we're building or proposing to build on prime agricultural land pieces is a key component of that. Maybe another one, and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but maybe there should be consideration on what the proponent has done or is doing to revitalize other parts of the city or build within the existing urban boundary. I don't know if that's feasible, but it's maybe something to think about versus just building on farmland.
No, thank you.
Other thoughts are on the table, so I'm not dominating the mic. Kathy? Saw your hand going up.
Thanks. Well, I just want clarification on the agricultural impact assessment. Most of it is straightforward, but my question's very simple. Is it for all proposed ones, and is it for all established ones? Because after all, the city of Hamilton thoroughly encouraged us to put second businesses on our properties. And a classic one is Kevin Haynes on Highway 5, who has just done a magnificent job of agritourism. But there are others, of course. So I just want that clarified. Drew, if you may, proposed and established?
It would be proposed. I don't think there would be any restriction on established operations. So any proposed new non-agriculture developments or boundary expansions, things like that, changes to official plans would require AIAs going forward, as well as energy projects across the province would require agriculture impact assessments if they're on prime agricultural land.
May I let you know, Drew, and others around the table, at my age, I do wear hearing aids. This one's in for service. They're not up to much for what you pay for them.
I thought it was just me. Sorry.
And thank you, because I don't think I've hardly heard a word so far, but that's okay, and I've done my homework anyway. So, Drew, I'm sorry, but is this impact assessment for both proposed ones down the line, the future, as well as the ones that have come into place in the last 5 to 10 years? Is it everybody?
So it wouldn't be for anything existing. It would be for proposed developments on agriculture land. So that would be a proposed urban boundary expansion, a proposed official plan amendment, a proposed non-agricultural use, a proposed energy project, renewable energy project on agriculture land would require an agriculture impact assessment.
And Drew, I'll ask a second question. Is this impact assessment carried out at the expense of the farmer or the individual who puts the business together.
Yeah, it's at the expense of the applicant.
It depends on the application then.
Yeah.
So have you got any idea of the range of invoices?
No, I don't.
A surprise. Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, agriculture impact assessments are something that OFA has lobbied strongly in favor of. To have this put in place as a tool to either redirect development into non-prime agricultural areas, or, I think it could be used as well in a place where we want to promote a project in agriculture areas such as agritourism or value-added agriculture and other opportunities.
Well, as you and I both know, lots of businesses have gone in. Ones that were already established, like the markets on the side of the road. And then, of course, as I say, agritourism. In my case, Rockhaven, and it just goes on. And all of them were clearly allowed at the time. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson online?
Yeah, I think it would just be helpful to clarify, this is for urban boundary expansion. So not just any development in a rural area, but a rural use turning urban is where the agriculture impact is. So if you want to do agritourism, that's an allowed agricultural use. That's permitted today. This agricultural impact assessment, just my understanding of what I heard from the presentation, only taking in a rural area and doing something urban in it is when this comes in, when a proponent's proposing to do that. I don't know if staff are maybe able to clarify. It just seems there was a bit of where does this apply, or what is this AIA used for? And my understanding was only when urban boundary expansions are happening, not any type of development.
Through the chair, that's correct. So the consultation that we're doing now is for agricultural impact assessments for urban boundary expansion applications. So if an applicant wants to propose an urban boundary expansion application, they have to give us an agricultural impact assessment. And through this work, we can identify what that assessment has to look at. So it can look at things like the impact to the land that they want to develop, but they would also have to look at what the impact of that expansion would have on the surrounding agricultural uses to make sure that if the urban boundary is expanded and you have those urban uses that, like the next session over, how are they impacted by that as well? So the city's official plan does recognize the use of an agricultural impact assessment for like a range of different development types, but the feedback that we're looking for as a part of our project is specific to urban boundary expansions.
Thank you. Mel?
I'm just wondering one question. Who is going to make the decision on when an application comes in, whether it's the proper thing to go on that agriculture property or not?
Through the chair to the committee member, ultimately the process for reviewing and making a decision on a urban boundary expansion application, the city would receive the application. It would go through the framework in regards to staff review and public consultation, and council would ultimately make a decision on the matter. It could be appealed by the applicant if a refusal is made or a non-decision occurs. And in that case, the application would be referred to the Ontario Land Tribunal, where a decision would be made.
When you're making the first decision, I hope there's some good agriculture people on that committee to help make the decision.
Councillor Taddison?
Just looking at slide 4 where the map is, and it says potential urban expansion areas under the provincial planning statement. So I see there's 6 areas, 1 area in Ancaster, 2 areas off 20 Road West, or maybe 3 areas there. And then there's Whitechurch, 20 Road, Elfrida. That's a very small picture of the city. Are there any other potential areas where developers could launch an appeal? Or is, like, what determined these areas as the 6th or 7th?
Great question. Ultimately, it's the Greenbelt which constrains those areas and identifies those as the areas where an application could be received. They're often referred to as the White Belt lands. Yeah, they're not within the Greenbelt plan area, and they're outside of the urban boundary.
And not to get the air of anybody up in Flamborough, but is there anything along the, I guess, Waterdown area that's proposed?
Through the chair, so other areas of urban Hamilton and areas like Dundas, Flamborough, they are currently fully in covered or what's yeah by the Greenbelt plan and area. So there's nowhere where the existing urban boundary of Dundas or Waterdown or Binbrook could expand without hitting the Greenbelt plan area.
And just looking at the 20 Road East, and where I see, there's a purple area, so that's obviously airport sensitive lands based on the noise factors, but there's also the 20 Mile Creek, and we're running that right basically into the 20 Mile Creek. Will there be any consideration into protecting that watershed and maybe a bigger buffer zone?
Yeah, so the 20 Road East area, there is, I'll call it like a finger of the Greenbelt plan area that does reach into it. And one of the submission requirements that we've identified in the draft framework for urban boundary expansion applications is a sub-watershed study that would have to look at what the impact of that development would have on a sort of broader watershed level, as well as from a natural heritage levels to ensure that there is no impact to those features. So while within that specific area, the Greenbelt plan would prevent any urban development from going within it, the sub-watershed study would also identify any impacts of sort of upstream developments to it.
Thanks so much, Charlie. No more questions at this point.
Any other questions? Councillor Kassar.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On the topic of prime agricultural lands, just a question to staff and then maybe to committee members who have knowledge on this area. I believe there's multiple methods on how to classify prime agricultural land. Has it been determined or is a suggestion already in the framework? And if so, what is it? And then the second question to committee members is, do you have feedback on what methodology should be used, if that's clear?
Yeah, so on the assessment of prime agricultural land, so currently the Rural Hamilton official plan maps agricultural areas, which fall under the definition of prime agricultural land and the rural lands. As part of the agricultural impact assessment, I believe, though I might have to follow up, that part of the scope of that is that they would have to look at the actual soil mapping within the area to determine the types of soil. But I believe, Councillor, your question might be more like the overall review of how the city maps where prime agricultural areas are. And the Rural Hamilton official plan that established the prime agricultural or the agricultural mapping that we have now, we are due for a large review of that plan, which includes looking at all of our existing agricultural versus rural designations. So that's a large project that the city will have to undertake that will involve a lot of talk on like what methodology the cities should use citywide, and it would include, I'm sure, lots of engagement with this group here.
So just follow up to that then, a lot of work to do that. Can you just paint a picture on the timing of that work versus the timing of this framework being established, just so we can have an idea of how that comes together? Thank you, Charlie.
The timing of, so that work is on our work plan. We don't have a firm timetable yet, and this is honestly due to all the changes that the province have been making. They keep on changing the planning rules, but it is on our work plan. We know we have to do it, and there will be hopefully soon. I can't give a date, like an official launch of that project, which would include like a look at all of the agricultural policies within the rural Hamilton official plan and what makes sense.
Yeah, and through you, Chair, thank you for the answer, Charlie. I know it's been difficult. I wanted to everyone to hear kind of where that was at. Appreciate it.
Just your other point, Councillor, on the mapping and where the data comes from, I think I'm on record with saying that the only realistic and consistent way to identify prime agricultural land is through Canada Land Inventory. And, basically that meets the definition of class 1 to 7. And I think that's where the data is most reliable. Other thoughts? Councillor?
Just, yes. It's on, great, thanks. Well, you're a handy guy. You're a handy guy to have around.
I'm here for you.
Just looking at the fundamentals here, this has the potential to be a substantial alteration in the form and perhaps even the style of development that was previously not embraced by perhaps the largest cumulative public interface in terms of boundaries. So that having been said, I mean, you've explained that this is another way the province is coming at perhaps doing what they wanted to do all along. And if they could hive it off to the OLT, that becomes a vehicle where they can say, well, we didn't do it, OLT did it. So given that reality, am I safe to suggest, and I'm wanting to put words in your mouth here, so be careful what I say, to suggest that we will be taking whatever reasonable, and I use that in the widest sense of the concept, planning precautions around prime agricultural land. Let's call a spade a spade. I agree with the need to study the land. We're a little bit behind the chair historically in terms of keeping the classification up to date, but it would be a good refresher to get on top of that. But this is a changed world now. This is I've no particular confidence in the OLT or lack of confidence. I want to try to at least be fair about it. But what I am confident about is that this is not what the citizens told us they wanted to see.
Yeah, I think these are my words, but one of the main reasons why staff identified the need for a framework is to ensure that any urban boundary expansion application that we receive is as thorough and goes through as much rigor as the city can put it through based on the priorities that we've heard from like the city, the city council, one of which is the protection of agricultural lands. So while we can't predispose or predetermine what the outcome of an application may be, especially if it goes to the Ontario Land Tribunal, we can certainly ensure that when an application is made, that we put it through as thorough a review and ask for as much information so we can make an informed recommendation to council, and council has all of their information when they determine what they want to do with the application.
Through you, Chair, that's pretty much what I wanted to hear. In your words, you emphasize that, and I think it's important to understand, given the milieu that we're in, that the city's not rolling over and just saying you can do whatever the hell you want. We are very purposefully aiming to build in whatever protections, a big part of which is the very important constituent consultations, because a lot of these folk who took the time, and there were thousands of them last time, as I recall, in many cases aren't even aware this is going on. You know, so anyhow, that's all I wanted to say, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tasden?
Just for Charlie, sir, this is the draft framework. Is there any anticipated changes between the draft framework that's existing now and the final framework that's going to come through in the next few months?
Through the chair, we do expect that based on all of the input that we're going to receive from advisory committees, the public, that we would make changes to the framework based on what we've heard. And I'd encourage everyone to visit. We do have an engage page up on our website, which has some information that kind of goes through things that the city has control over and things that the province has control over. So we're trying to get as much information on how we should respond in the framework on the things that we can control. So I would expect there would be changes. And then when the framework is finalized and brought to council, the other thing that we will do is enshrine the framework and its requirements into the official plans. So to essentially give it more teeth. So it's not a framework, it's official plan policy that and the application would have to comply to. Yeah.
So hence the importance for the public to get out and voice their opinions in the upcoming public consultations that are happening at the end of November. Thank you very much.
Mel?
If there is any major changes, will that come back here to this committee?
We don't have a plan. So once we receive all the feedback, we will have to have a statutory public meeting at Planning Committee for the official plan amendment to enshrine it into policy. We aren't planning on doing any additional engagement after these upcoming open houses, and one of the main reasons for that is that we can receive urban boundary expansion applications at any time. So there is pressure to get this into policy as soon as we can, faster than maybe we would have liked. So.
That's what concerns me. When I know you just said there's pressure on you to get it done. Sometimes when there's pressure on, there's some small mistakes that are made that maybe could be major in the long run. That's what I think. If we could have a look at it again, I would really appreciate that.
Oh, Councillor Wilson, is that your hand?
Yeah, sorry, just a suggestion maybe to help action that request, because based on Charlie's answer, I don't think it's likely this item is going to come prior to that planning committee discussion. Is there a way that we can ensure that folks know when it's coming to planning committee so that we all get, because as councillors, we're going to get a second time to look at this when it comes to planning committee, but that's a public meeting. Anyone can go to, the agenda is public in advance. People have a chance to review that. I hear there's an appetite to get more involved. I also heard that it might not be possible to come back to this exact body. Is there an interim or a middle solution to take that a little bit further?
Yeah, well, if I can maybe speak for the group, I don't think there's a lot of contentious items in here from our standpoint around protecting agricultural land and things like that. There's some good steps in here already. If there are changes, maybe it could be something that's sent through the committee via email with a track changes type of a document through Carrie, so that we're aware of the next steps in the process.
Yes, once the date of the planning committee has been set, we can send an update through clerks that this item will be coming to this planning committee and inform everyone when they can view the final report.
Appreciate that. Maybe a little off topic, but it just kind of popped in my head. We've got this large purple area on the map that's restricted by noise, restrictions from the airport on residential development, yet there are houses littered on residential lots up and down Dickinson, English Church, Airport Road, Miles Road, Glover Road. Is that not a concern to them, and why wouldn't we look at housing in those lands as well? Not that I'm promoting that, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, the city's official plans and the provincial planning statement have policies that do not allow new residential or sensitive land uses sort of within the, they're called noise exposure forecasts from the airport. And really the purpose of that is to ensure that we're limiting new residential development, that once they're there, they may start to have issues with the noise, and it can threaten the viability of the airport. And the city actually has more restrictive noise policies than what the province has set out. And the main reason for that is Hamilton International Airport is one of the few airports where you're allowed to have cargo planes flying in and out 24 hours a day. And they've voiced to us that it's very important that they keep that advantage. So, so that's why we don't allow new residential uses. If there is an urban boundary expansion application made for those employment lands, then obviously there would be a new land use compatibility potential issues with the existing residents who are there now, who may have new like employment industrial type of uses going in, but that would be a completely different set of work that they'd have to do.
Okay, any other questions? Are there any responses to any of the discussion questions? Have we covered some of them off? Are you something we can think about as well and take to the open houses coming up over the next couple of weeks? Are these the discussions questions that will be going forward at those open houses? Or were these specific to this group?
These were specific for the group, but we welcome any comments after the committee meeting has adjourned. If the committee would like to submit written comments or has any questions, we'd be happy to answer those as well.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, so thanks for the presentation, gentlemen, and I'm sure there'll be more on this to come. I'll certainly be forwarding it to our research folks at OFA to go over some of the AIA stuff, if nothing else. And it's something that's a big file in our office right now to try and make sure it gets done right at OMAFRA. So and get something with some teeth in it, because we know everyone else will be looking for the loopholes and finding ways to move things forward. So. All right, can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Oh, that was to put it on the floor. You've got multiple. Well, okay, that's fine. It's on the floor. There's a motion there, and we need to carry that. All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Okay, number 11, discussion items. Development charges for farm labor residences. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put item 11.1 on the floor? Melvin, Gavin. And are everyone in favor of that? Any opposed? It's carried. I think I'm turning this over to you, Tyson.
Great, thanks, Drew. And through you, Chair, just wanted to provide a bit of an update on development charges for farm labor residents. So for those that are aware, earlier this year, there was some updates to the development charges bylaw, which included exempting farm labor residents from development charges. So before that, development charges were assessed on farm labor residences. Just the one caveat I do want to mention is that exemption applies only to the municipal, to the city DCs, and does not apply to the school board DCs. So that's something that I think maybe wasn't brought up during some of our conversations, but wanted to make that aware, given that the boards have their own separate DC bylaw on the books from the city.
Any idea on the value of that portion of the DC?
Sure, I want to say looking at, because they would assess it as a whole. From my understanding, at least the most recent one that was assessed on a farm labor residence was 3,400 and change combined. So that would have been the separated school and I think the public school board. So you're looking at about just under $3,500 for each structure, if you will.
And is there a process to work through the education bylaw on that, or is that kind of a closed system?
Through you, Chair, that's a good question and maybe a question for finance staff. But I'm sure that either the staff or committee can reach out and request that conversation with the boards if that is something they're willing to take a look at the next time they're doing their DC bylaw update.
Any thoughts on any of this? I'm looking at the guys that have labor residences on their farms. No. Okay. Good. Mark?
I'm just wondering if Councillor Beatty might have a comment on that.
I was hoping you wouldn't point at me. I think through the chair that the school boards just reviewed their EDC bylaws, and I only know that because I chat frequently with my local trustee, but it is, I think, outside the realm of the city's purview. It's something that the local school boards have the direct authority to do, independent of us. So it's entirely a school board process. I don't know if there's a companion committee that deals directly from an agriculture and rural affairs purview with the district school boards, but that would be probably the best venue. I'm wondering, Councillor Tattison, if that is something that we might, as members of the liaison committee with the public district school board, if maybe that's an agenda item that we would care to bring forward on behalf of this committee.
Yeah, I was just wondering, as a former trustee, you might have the knowledge in that area, and that's why but I agree that it might be an avenue that we could pursue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, fellas. Anything else?
I don't know if there's something, Chair, that needs to be formalized. If you wanted to request that that this committee request that the HWDSB liaison committee, HWCDSB liaison committee engage with our partner school boards in a conversation to understand the development charges system and how it pertains to agricultural buildings.
I think that's a great motion, and I hope Carrie wrote it down.
Me too.
Is
I'd
there
be
a
happy to
sec-
move that because I think it came out of my mouth.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tattison? Any discussion? Yeah, Councillor McMeekin.
Just briefly, like the school board, the city had the authority to go one way or the other, and based on the principle that we had several long discussions about, we decided to stand with the agri-food sector and waive those fees. So I think the the same kind of ethical, economic, are you prepared to support the agri-food sector? Questions can be asked legitimately of the school board, and they would have the same authority to be able to waive. And perhaps someone in our one thing I would add to Councillor Beatty's suggestion is, since the city has taken that position, maybe as part of that review, whoever in the city who can write out, articulate the rationale for what we did, to share that with the school board, so they can understand where and why and how we came at it, and that might influence some of their thinking. But I like Beatty's Councillor Beatty's motion as well. That's a friendly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and certainly there aren't many folks living in farm labor residences that are accessing our schools, and most of them certainly are the primary residences on the farm and already paying their fair share, I'm sure. So you want back in, Councillor Beatty?
I was just going to say I'm happy to take that amendment or advice, or however we're going to word it, from Councillor McMeekin. I would just make note that I'm in about the 90th percentile of certainty that at least the HWDSB, the public board, just concluded a review of their EDC bylaw, and I don't know what their cycle is. I will find that out, but that we hopefully didn't miss the boat on that, but I'll certainly raise the question at our next liaison committee.
All right, thank you. I think we need to vote on that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, nothing else there? We're good? All right, we'll move to item 11.2, Farm 911 program update. And I'll turn it back to you, Tyson.
And through you, the chair, I have an update from Growth Management Division from Heather Travis that I'll read out, and it's as follows. Since the launch of the Farm 911 program in January 2024, we have received 5 requests for Farm 911 signs this year, and 2 have been approved. The other 3 did not meet the existing criteria to be eligible for a sign due to the properties must be vacant and properties must not have an existing municipal address. Given these submissions, it appears that there's an interest and need to expand the program. We've consulted with emergency services and they have supported a change in the program. We've also consulted with other municipalities. We will therefore be bringing forward amendments to the Farm 911 policy in a report earlier next year. We require council approval to amend this policy. We will also need to make council aware that opening the policy up wider to include properties that are not vacant and are already addressed has the potential to add a significant number of eligible properties. Given the program is free to property owners and all expenses related to signage and installation are at the cost of the city, we require council approval to authorize staff to open the program up more widely. Staff are bringing forward a report tentatively targeted for February 2025 on a citywide municipal addressing bylaw, and the amendments to Farm 911 will be included in that report. We can update the committee of the exact dates once finalized and also send an update to the committee once the amendments to the policy have been approved. And again, that's the update from Growth Management Division, who's managing the municipal addressing in the Farm 911 program.
All right, thank you. Discussion on this? I was one of the ones that wasn't approved, I can tell you that. I think certainly opening this up is something that we're going to need to do to make sure that farmers across the city have that safety aspect on their properties that aren't properly identified. And, even though there might be a different address at the house, it's not always the place that the farm is accessible. So there are some opportunities here to expand the program. Gavin.
Tyson, to amend this policy, I mean, there are properties, I've got one property that is vacant. Does not have a number, but it has frontage on 2 roads. And even on the one road, you've got to use 2 different accesses to get complete access to the property. So technically, I need 3 different numbers for this property. Is the revised policy going to cover this type of a situation too?
That's a good, or through the chair, that's a great question, Gavin. And unfortunately, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I know this update was just provided to me via email ahead of this meeting. But I'm sure those questions could be communicated back to staff, as well as if the committee deems it so that they want to take a look at those proposed changes before they are approved or sent to council for approval.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think it's probably, go ahead.
One thing I will say with Drew's, he's got 2 properties that has a main waterway runs down through and separates the fields off. So great emergency, he needs an extra entrance into those 2 properties.
I think it's probably a good idea to bring forward any of the changes that might be coming to this committee. We missed some of the stuff the last time around, and hopefully we can get it right here going forward and support farmers across the city with this initiative. Would you have your hand up?
I remember when we put the numbers into Glanbrook, a lot of people didn't think they were necessary, but they have expanded, and it's been a godsend to a lot of addresses. Anything you're going to do with 911 numbers has to be mandatory. It can't be voluntary.
Any other thoughts? Would there be a mover to bring this as a report back to the committee? The potential changes to the program, Alan? Seconder? Melvin? All in favor of that? Any opposed? Carried? Any other discussion? Take a motion to receive the report. Daniel? Seconder? Councillor Taddison? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion that we haven't gone through? No? Any other business? General information from those around the table? Anyone online? Other business?
All information, Drew. International.
Your mic.
International Plowing Match is coming to this area in 25. It's going to be in Niagara at the West Niagara Fairgrounds, is the headquarters. So there's going to be probably 700 or 800 acres used down there. So there'd be requests going around for volunteers for that to come down. So anybody wants to help, let me know. Thank you.
Any other general information? We're good? Pretty good? All right, if there's nothing else, take a motion to adjourn. Al Payne. Very good. That was our seconder. I don't usually go for seconders. Melvin. All in favor of adjourning? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you.